everyone, welcome back to another week. This week it's macaroni cheese. So I'll just talk you through the ingredients and then we'll get cooking. So in this bowl here I've got our macaroni. We've got 250 grams of that, so this is going to serve 4 people. We've got some cauliflower and some broccoli broken up into little trees or florets. We've got 600 mils of milk. You can use whole or semi-skims. And then in these 2 pots here, we've got 40 grams of butter and 40 grams of plain flour and 1 teaspoon of mustard powder. We've got some breadcrumbs, which we're going to sprinkle on the top. We've got some lovely mature cheddar cheese, and I always like to put a little bit of nutmeg in my macaroni cheeses. The first thing that you're going to need to do is obviously just get all of the ingredients ready, and then you're going to pop in the butter into the saucepan. And you want to let that foam away and melt completely before you add the flour and the mustard powder. Meanwhile, get your pan of pasta water ready, and you want to put a nice amount of salt in the water as well. So you can see that's foaming away. So I'm just going to pop in all of the flour and mustard powder and give that a good stir. And you'll see it sort of comes to a paste, which is called a roux. So whenever you see a recipe that says make a roux, that's what it means. It just means equal quantities of butter and flour. So you want to cook that off a little bit, and you want to put the temperature on about medium heat, and just cook out the flour, continuously stirring so it doesn't catch, just to cook out some of that sort of flouriness. You can start to see when it starts to sort of foam up again a little bit, start to turn a little bit white, that you can then add in your milk. So the way we're going to do this is to add a little bit of milk at a time, make sure it comes together into a smooth paste, and then add a little bit more and work your way up that way. So to begin with, a good splash, and then it's all about making sure that you keep it on the move, and it will start to look a bit like mashed potato to begin with. You want to sort of beat it so it becomes really nice and smooth. And then as soon as it's come together, you're going to add a little bit more and repeat until it's a nice thick white sauce. So you'll see it starts to look a bit funny and you think, oh, I'm never going to get there, but you have to keep going, really work it, get your muscles in action, and beat it until it comes to another paste like that, and then you can add a bit more. And if it ever gets to the stage where you're worried about it and you think, oh, I'm never going to get the lumps out, sometimes if you just take an actual whisk to it rather than a wooden spoon, it comes together. So if you're ever sort of thinking, oh good, this is never ever going to come together, then just give it a good old whisk up and it should smooth out. But if you keep it on the move and you keep whisking nice and vigorously, it should come together without any lumps. So a white sauce is a really brilliant thing to have. It's one of those things that we call a mother sauce. So it's got lots and lots of additions that you can add to it to make it into different things. So it's the base for a chicken pie, also the white element of the lasagna. You can make little croquettes, lots and lots of different things. And then the last lot goes in. So you want it to be slightly on the sort of looser side before you add the cheese, because the cheese is going to firm it up, but it wants to be sort of the consistency of quite a sort of thin custard. It should coat the back of your spoon, but any thicker than this and then your pasta will go quite claggy when you cook it. So you want it on the sort of looser side if you're going to bake. So once you've had a chance for it to sort of bubble away, you'll see that actually it's thickened up even a little bit more. So it's really important you do cook out the flour and the sort of roux as much as possible so you know exactly what the consistency is. So I've just taken the cheese sauce off the heat, so it's been bubbling away quite nicely, and then I'm just going to add in most of the cheese, but leaving enough, probably about that much, to sprinkle on the top later. And at this stage I take it off a heat because you don't want to cook it anymore, and the residual heat will just melt the cheese nicely. The other thing to mention is I never really season my cheese sauce until I've added all the cheese, because cheese is naturally quite salty. So before adding any extra salt and pepper, you want to just have a taste of the sauce first. You can also mix up the cheeses that you put in. So today we've just used cheddar, but quite often you can do a combination of cheeses, so things like Parmesan, red Leicester if you like that slightly sort of more orangey colour, or any sort of bits and bobs that you've got lying around. But cheddar is sort of classic really. So you can see that lovely silky, smooth, rich cheese sauce there, which is absolutely delicious. So you can also use this cheese sauce to make a cauliflower cheese. So if you just simply break up the cauliflower, pop it in a baking dish. You can blanch it before, or roast it is really nice before you put the cauliflower cheese sauce on in the baking dish and pour the cheese sauce over and bake it. Really delicious with a Sunday lunch. So the cheese sauce is looking lovely. So I'm just going to leave that to side. You can just put a lid on and it will be fine. Sometimes it gets a little bit of a skin on, so just give it a stir once in a while. If it does get a skin, do not worry, it's just going to mix in a bit later. So you can see that sitting away nicely. I've got a rolling boil on my pasta water here, so I'll just swap that over. So we've got a nice rolling boil on our pasta. So all of the pasta is going to go in. When you're putting anything into hot water, just be really careful. You want to very slowly bring the bowl to the water. If you drop it from a height, it's just going to splash and hurt you. So take it right to the water and gently drop it in. We're going to cook the pasta for about 5 minutes and then add in the cauliflower and the broccoli. So I'm just going to add in a couple of gratings of nutmeg. Stir that through, have a little taste, and then adjust. So our pasta's cooking, and I'm just going to add in the cauliflower and the broccoli. Again, just drop it in nicely. And then I've also got these lovely, we call them broccoli pennies here, but they are the stalks of the broccoli, which are really delicious to eat. So don't ever waste those, they can go in as well. So just drop those in the water. That's going to cook for another couple of minutes. We don't want everything to get too soggy because it's going to cook again in the oven. So at this stage, it's worth preheating your oven to 180 degrees and getting yourself your colander ready. So just to get the rest of the ingredients ready, we've got our leftover cheese, and I've got some lovely breadcrumbs here just from a loaf of bread that we've made. So just whiz that up. So it's always worth saving ends of bread and then just keeping them in the freezer if you've got access to a freezer. So get the breadcrumbs in with the cheese and you can sort of mix it all together. And then I'm going to pick the thyme leaves into the thing, and if you've got a thyme stalk like this, you can just pull against the grain and it will just pick off the little leaves. So I've just drained the pasta with the cauliflower and the broccoli. When you're doing it, make sure you get a grown-up to help you, because it's one of the most dangerous things in the kitchen, hot water. So please be very safe when you're doing it. So the final thing to do is just pour in the cheese sauce and then mix everything together. So you want to coat all of that lovely pasta in with the cauliflower and the broccoli. So I've just put the macaroni into my baking dish. You can see it's got a quite nice and full, but it's got a nice amount of liquid in there, which is brilliant. So the final thing to do is just to get our topping and just to put that all the way over the top. And that's going to go really crispy and delicious. That's the sort of final dish. If you like tomatoes, you can put a few sort of tomatoes on the top as well. That's always quite nice. And I'm just going to pop that in the oven for about 20 minutes. So I've just pulled that out the oven, but you can see it's all really looking super delicious. So I'll just show you, you can hear the nice crispy top, and then if you dig in, everything's still nice and juicy. So I do hope you enjoy it. Send us in your pictures. If you take a video of it, of you making it, we love to see you cooking. Send it through.